meeting. This is for you and for us. Hopefully we will do something today that will make an impact in your life, be helpful to you. As we say, you don't have to be already worked out, recovered, whatever. The fact of it is, we'll take you just the way that you are, and because we'll love you the way you are. We may not like all your stuff, but you don't like your stuff either. So, but I'd like for us all to take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Another deep breath again, and then out through your mouth. Kind of blow it out. One more double breath. Now, my question to you guys, what is it that you really want? What I want is to have a meeting where we make a difference in people's lives, that we can make a connection. Deep breath. Another one. And exhale. Well, I think I'm
meeting without any technical difficulty. Be nice.
Doing better. All right, I want to turn this over to our Mr. MC, and that's Paul. Thank you, Paul, for being here with us tonight.
You are welcome. And for anybody watching out somewhere else, you're welcome too. One of the things that I love about Saturday Night Live is that we really do love you. When you look at who pops up tonight, those are people who care about you, even if they have never met you. And we want what's best. And we want to help give you some tools and something to change your lives. And you're welcome here, whether you're drunk or sober or clean or high, because our job and our goal is to help you build into a better life and give you information. And probably most importantly is to let you know that you are loved. And the only way you can know that is when you feel it the first time. You'll recognize what it is. Most of us get lied to about what love is, and we think it's something different. But in reality, it's just an acceptance, which we accept everybody and anything you got going on in your life. We may not like what's going on, but we love you and we want to help you get to the place that you want to be. And tonight we're working on step 12. We go month to month, and this is the 12th month, and we're on the 12th step. But before we move on, we're going to have Kate read all 12 steps for us. Kate, bring it on.
All right. Step 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Step 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thank you, Kate. Great job.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Boy, that was pretty good with Kate. She practiced up while she was gone last week.
I certainly did.
I think she's going to do them from memory next week.
Am I?
Just messing. For anybody who's not aware how this works, we do the steps month to month, and that's why we're on step 12. But starting next month, it'll be January, we'll be in step 1. And I just want to invite you to come along on the journey with us. Get your step guide, and we'll help you work your way through it. And now we're going to work on step 12 with Lisa. Lisa, come on down.
Hey guys, so step 12, and as you see occasionally my picture changes, we work the steps out of the Life Recovery Bible. So I wanted to make sure and be able to share that with you so everybody could see what it looks like. So I was able to find that and put that up for you guys. Out of the Life Recovery Bible and step book, it breaks it up into little sections. And the section that I picked today was listening first. So not always something I do well, but we'll see what it says. So it says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. We may be so excited about what God has done for us that we want to rush out and tell everyone our story. Or we may be very shy and hesitate to tell people, especially if we think they are better than we are. We all have a valuable story to tell. We just need to discover the best way to communicate it. God led the evangelist Philip to meet an influential traveler who had gone to Jerusalem to worship, and he was now returning. Reading aloud from the book of the prophet Isaiah, the Holy Spirit said to Philip, "Go over and walk alongside the carriage." Philip ran over and heard the man reading from the prophet Isaiah. Philip asked, "Do you understand what you are reading?" The man replied, "How can I unless someone instructs me?" So, beginning with the same scripture, Philip told him the good news about Jesus. Acts 8:27 through 31, 35. The way Philip communicated is a model for us. He was sensitive to allow God to lead him to someone who was ready. He wasn't intimidated by the man's status and did not hesitate to tell him the good news about Jesus. Philip began by listening carefully. He tuned into the man's need and interest and then explained their relationship to the message he was prepared to share. Whether we are zealous or shy, following this model can help us communicate our message in a way that people can understand and receive it. You know, I thought that was pretty interesting reading that, and I thought it made me think a lot about the work that I do and just about the different models of recovery and the times that I've seen people come and go and struggle, and especially when I see people who have the best of intentions and they're wanting to get out there and they want to share the good news and they want to help other people find recovery, but they're not really listening to what God is telling them and where he's leading them. And so they find themselves in a situation where they let somebody in who actually becomes the negative influence in their life. So maybe too soon, and they make an unhealthy choice. And before long, both people are sick again instead of it going the other way around. So I think about, if you're struggling and you're why do I keep finding myself in this situation? Someone took advantage of me, or, oh, I messed up again, and maybe you should take a pause and carefully listen. Did God lead you, or did you lead you? And that, because when God leads you, he'll take you to the person who's ready and he'll give you the words to say. It's not about us knowing what, when, where. It's not about being scholars. It's about just being available to let God use us as a vessel. And I think that's where so often sometimes people struggle in recovery sharing their story, and it becomes an unhealthy interaction for both people, is because they want to force people who aren't ready to hear what they're not ready to hear, instead of listening to God's, message about when they're ready and being available when they are ready. So it just made me think about that, carefully listening. And I think about that also in our recovery too. How many times have we gone headstrong into, I'm going to work on this, especially as we're getting ready for step 1 coming around, and we're thinking about, what do I need to work on? What is, what every time I work these steps, God takes me to a new level, and I learn even more, and I get stronger and healthier, and my life seems to morph, and my recovery gets stronger. But how many times in the beginning did I go headlong into, oh, I got to work on this, like you hear Zach sometimes talking about, his cussing. I'm going to pick on him for a minute. You hear him talk about his cussing. He's going to work on his cussing, but really, God doesn't really want to work on his cussing. God wants to work on his anger. And God's like, if I can get you to stop smashing things, I don't care if you say a cuss word. We got to take this in baby steps. You're not ready to deal with your cussing because you'll start killing. So it's just stop, So we sometimes get focused on what we want instead of carefully listening to what God wants. And if we let God guide us and his timing, we'll find freedom. But we often try to avoid the thing that God is trying to work on because we may feel like it's insignificant, or we may feel like well, this is it. If I could just get this, then I'll be better. And the truth is, it's not the one thing that's going to fix you. It's one of the things that's going to help you, but you're not ready to get that because you're still dealing with this, So it just, that careful listening to God, it helped me, reading that kind of, how many times do we get in our own way because we're not listening? We're not carefully listening to God, or maybe we think we are. And then we go out and we end up going to help people for God. And then we get out there and all we've done is made everybody mad at us because nobody can stand to be around us because we're jerks. Because we are convinced that we are right and everybody else is wrong because God told me. And the truth is, God didn't tell you. You told you that this was how God told you. And
that happens so much.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, I think that that's where our humanity hurts people and turns them away from God. I think if we as Christians and we as people and humans would just stop and listen to God, and let him lead our decision making and lead our hearts, it would be a much different world. But we are human. We make mistakes and it's okay. He loves us anyway. And if we go down that rabbit trail of working on our cussing and we make a mistake, we get in a fight, God's going to love us and forgive us. We have to understand that he's going to be there for us. And it's okay to make mistakes. That was something I didn't get for a very long time. I had a very perfectionistic mentality. In fact, I had it to the point to where if it was not something I could master, I wasn't going to even bother it. Wasn't interested in trying it. Not even gonna. But I've learned that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to try. But the most powerful tool in recovery is being willing. You got to be willing to do whatever it is that God is guiding you to do. You got to be willing to make the changes. You got to be willing to see what you see, hear what you hear, right, Doug? You got to be willing to work on the thing that God tells you to, even when you really don't want to. I think about a story that I tell sometimes. I remember sitting in church one day and God telling me that I needed to go do something. I had to go tell somebody who I felt like had hurt me and was mean to me. And I had to go tell them sorry. And I didn't want to. I was mad. And I was sitting in the church house having myself a tantrum. And matter of fact, Zach even looked at me. He goes, "What's the matter with you?" And I'm like, "God told me I had to go tell this person sorry." And he went, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he kind of leaned way away from me because he knew I was having myself a hissy fit. And finally, I found that humility, and because God just kept sitting there. You got to do this. This is important. You got to do this. And I literally, Zach still laughs, but I literally threw my purse down and stomped across the church, angry and mad the whole way there, and did what God told me to do. And it turned out to be a very wonderful experience for both of us, you know, and we were able to mend some brokenness in both of us. And even though I stomped the whole way and had a 2-year-old tantrum in the middle of church house, I still had to be, I was willing to do what God wanted me to do, even if I didn't do it perfect. I still was willing. And from that willingness came freedom for not just me, but for other people. And so carefully listening to God. Sometimes you may not understand why he's asking you to do what he's doing, but if you carefully listen and you follow his instruction, he'll lead you to someone who needs to hear what's going on right now, and to who needs you in that moment. So that's what I have. Thank you very much.
Well, I wanted to comment on what you said there, and what was in the literature. I think it's so significant, our story about Philip, that he went and he waited, and the first thing was he got instruction to go over and listen. Okay,
Right.
And that's what this lesson is about, is listen first. And we humans, we prefer to talk instead of listen, right? But we got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and
For a reason.
for a reason, if nothing else, to remind us that we should listen more than we talk. And here we are talking, right, Lisa?
Right.
And so, but he said, go over and listen. And I'm not as good as I'm going to be, but I'm better than I used to be, right? Try to listen to what people are saying. And he was listening. And then Philip, he asked a question. And I've been working on that myself, you know. And he asked a question after he listened for a while. He was already invested. He asked a question, you know, do you know what you're reading? And then he shut up. Okay. And that's pretty amazing for an evangelist to shut up, right? And so he shut up and he listened to the guy. He went on, and the man invited him up, and he still didn't say anything. And then the man asked Philip a question. And so he was able to take what he was reading and then communicate from there. And I think that's so important for us. What we're talking about here is listening. I entitled tonight about, I gave it a different title, and I said the superpower of listening. And I think listening is a superpower.
You know, Doug, it's interesting that you were saying that. It reminds me of a situation that I had myself through my work. And there was this person that I was trying to work with and help them, and, you know, and mentor them and kind of help them through things. And this person was homeless, and I kept trying to help them with that. I found myself struggling. I'm just like, I don't know what else to do. They just, you know, they're not following through. They don't want to engage. They don't want to do any of the stuff that it's going to take to not be homeless. And then I realized that this person spent all their time looking for a job. And so their priority was to find a job. And once I was willing to truly listen to what they were saying, which was, it doesn't do me any good to find a house if I can't pay for it. And so they wanted to have the job so that they could get the house. And so they were satisfied staying in the shelter where they were at. They were like, this is what's going to help me get where I need to go, but I have to have a job to get to be able to keep it. And once I heard that, then I was like, now I know how to help. We can fill out applications. We can do what we need to do. But I had to be willing to listen, because I looked at their situation and I thought I knew what they needed help with. And I missed the mark completely because I wasn't listening. And it wasn't until I did that I was able to make change and help them.
The power of listening, and not only will that hear where they're at so that we can participate in what's going on. Instead of running our program, we get on their wavelength and get involved with their program. That's what really helps, right? That's what you were saying. And then we're really able to help. And there is a certain power. I listened to a man that used to be the president of one of the psychology organizations, and he said that there is a tremendous power in just listening. And he said, and if the church and if people would learn how to just listen, said it'd put all of us out of business. I thought that was a pretty powerful statement. So the power of listening. I just wanted to jump in with that while we were in that vein there. And besides that, we needed to give Zach a little bit of time to breathe.
I have learned that God knows how to communicate with me. And when he speaks to me, he talks in the same language that I would use. He doesn't talk above my head or like he's talking to a baby. And he has thought patterns that he gives me that would be the way that I would understand it and the way that I would think about it. But sometimes I get to thinking his voice sounds a lot like my voice, and my voice sounds a lot like his voice. So what I'm thinking is what is happening. Instead of leaving it and listening to what God actually says, I start listening to my own voice because he gets so close to be able to be near me. He speaks so clearly that he doesn't sound that much different than I do when he's talking to me. You know, there's not a great big booming voice in the clouds with thunder and lightning. He talks to me in what Hick from Joplin would understand. And sometimes I think, well, Hick from Joplin understands, so he doesn't need to listen to God's voice anymore. And I get myself in trouble. But it is true that listening is one of the hardest exercises we ever do. So I'm going to move on, and Zach is going to do reflection for us tonight. Zach, come on down.
All right. Well, I don't know what I can add because everything was said tonight was really, really good, but let's start with the step here. So having had a spiritual awakening, step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and practice these principles in all of our affairs. And we're talking about listening tonight, and something I learned a few years ago was a listening tool is that when you ask a question before you ask another one, count to 10. And that's, that may sound ridiculous, but it's something to help you if you have a hard time. Because sometimes we ask so many questions, we don't give anybody time to think and answer. And that comes from a good place because we want to help real bad, And the questions tonight are talking about, sharing our recovery, sharing our recovery story, and I think it's important, like the work that I do, is I get to share my recovery story every day, and I'm really thankful that I get to do that. But one thing that's really important is that I only share what's appropriate. And I think sometimes when we don't know, or when we're new in recovery, we're proud of our story, which we should be. We're proud that we're in recovery, and that's okay. And so we want to tell the whole story, and that's just too much for people. And we are not going to know what's appropriate if we're not asking questions and listening like what we're talking about tonight. And so we got to listen first, and that goes back to asking good questions. And I can't think of his name. I just lost it. It's not Dave Ramsey. Who's the guy, Doug, that does all the the leadership stuff. I had his name and I lost it.
John Maxwell,
John
maybe?
Maxwell. And he has a book called The Art of Asking Good Questions. You know, and I want to get the book, but I haven't. But that's a really interesting quote that he has there is that we have to be, you know, we have to get really good at asking good questions. And like, for example, I remember whenever I was a kid and I was getting in all kinds of trouble, and an adult and I was getting in all kinds of trouble, you know. But I remember when I was younger, and I remember people used to always ask me what's wrong with you, you know, because I was a menace to society, right? And so they just wanted all that to stop. And so the question, what's wrong with you, instantly told me that they didn't care about me. They just wanted to know how to get me to stop upsetting everybody else. And so they didn't care about me. I didn't care about anybody else, so they didn't get any answers. And so, you know, a really powerful question, and it may not seem like it matters, but it's a world of difference. It matters greatly. What happened to you? You know, I don't know how many times, you know, we've had people come down. I mean, I deal with it at work all the time, but I don't know how many times we have people come down to SNL and they come in and they're angry and they're loud and they're screaming and yelling, and you know, they're, you know, maybe they're inebriated, maybe they're not, you know. And you know, we try to quietly, respectfully, you know, we give them some warnings, and if they can't you know, respect everybody else in the room and quiet down, and they're too disruptive, when we ask them to go upstairs and kind of take a breather. We don't ask them to leave. We just say, hey, let's go upstairs and take a breather. And I'm usually, not always, but I'm usually the guy that goes upstairs. And you know, if I can talk to them, that's the first question I ask. You know, I listen to them and let them rant, let them blow, let them get it out of their system. And when they take a breath, you know, I say, what happened to you? You know, because something obviously happened. You know, it may have happened today, it may have happened a week ago, it may have happened 50 years ago, you know, but something happened. And that question may not seem like it's important, but it's a game changer. You know, I've had people that you know, have been, you know, in services, or been in counseling, or been in for the system, if you want to call it that, you know, for years and years and years, you know, 10, 15, 20 years. And they say, no one's ever asked me that question. And you think, well, how could no one ever ask you that question? You've been in front of so many educated people. And but you know, sometimes we miss the simple things. And so, you know, we got to listen, because if you truly want to help somebody, if you're not listening, then you know, you don't. And I'm gonna say something here, and I'm not trying to be harsh. It's gonna sound kind of harsh, and I think it's already been said, but I'm gonna kind of double down on it. If you're not willing to listen, then you don't want to help anybody. You may think you do, but the truth is that you're out there for you because you feel good. That makes you feel good. It makes you feel good to be out there trying to help those people, even if you used to be one of those people. You know, but you know, turn it around on me. If I'm out there trying to help somebody and I can't shut my mouth and listen to somebody else, however they want to deliver it, that I'm not out there for them, I'm out there for me. And you know, that's the first thing we need to ask ourselves. And because if we're not out there for them, then it's probably not safe for them or us, is it? And so, you know, listening first, because we really want to help them, and then asking good questions, you know, and you know, and then only sharing what's appropriate. We don't want to force feed them our whole story because, we want to share it because we're proud of it, and, sometimes it's just, they just need the part that we survived where they're at. They just need that step. And, sometimes they just need us to say, I feel your pain. Pain's universal. And, and, I think we said this last week, but don't fake an answer. If you don't know the answer, if you don't know what to say, you tell the truth, because everybody knows when you're lying. And it's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to say I'll find out, or let's pray about it, or you know what, let's go to somebody else who may know. And something Lisa said that was really, really good is don't diminish your story. I've talked to a lot of people, and I've been through a lot of things in my life. I've had a lot of trauma, and sometimes people walk up to me and go, well, man, I just couldn't do what you do because I just haven't been through hardly anything. I don't have any great big excuse for using drugs, or I haven't had a lot of bad things happen to me. I just made bad choices. And the truth is that we have to not measure ourselves with somebody else, because what you go through is what you're pain to you is pain to you, and pain to me is pain to me. You can't look at me and say that you hurt less than I did. Trauma is trauma. We're not out here with a measuring stick seeing who's had worse. And you may have been to some recovery meetings and sit around where everybody's telling a war story, and it's like, oh well, you've had it's like someone's had it worse than you. When you were going through your hell, it was hell for you. And addiction's addiction. I've had somebody say one time, well, I've never used drugs or alcohol, and but they had an anger problem, and I said, addiction's addiction, and it's not like you have to have certain addictions to qualify, and recovery can be physical health, it can be mental health, it can be spiritual. Recovery is not just sections off over here for drugs and alcohol. And so and the reality of it is you usually don't get one without the others. And you hear a new term, or it's been around for a while, but it's becoming more mainstream. You hear co-occurring, and it's kind of like the system's picking up on what we all knew, that you don't get the one without the others. They all kind of go hand in hand. I mean, if you're in physical pain and you're self-medicating to escape that physical pain, then now you have a substance abuse issue. And so now we have now we need physical recovery and substance abuse recovery. And now we have a spiritual crisis, because we have all kinds of emotions and feelings about that, don't we? So that's just an example. It's never one without the other, in my opinion. And so don't shortchange yourself that you don't have a story to share, and that your story is not just as powerful as somebody else's. And it's your willingness to listen and share, take your recovery to somebody else and share that, You know, that's what it's about. You know, and that's part of your recovery. You know, that's you know, we have to give this away. If we don't give our recovery away, you know, it dies. You know, um, you know, you can't hide that you're in recovery. And people have tried to do that, and it doesn't work out very well. You know, and you know, something else along that line, and I think I'm going to wrap up here, is that I've met people who have tried to hide their recovery, and that's very dangerous, because when you hide your recovery, you don't make the people in your life supports. And what I mean by that is, for example, you know, if you hide your recovery, then you have people constantly, let's say your drug of choice is alcohol, or maybe it isn't, but you know, alcohol leads you to other things, for example, and maybe it's not leads you to the drugs, maybe it leads you to get angry. You know, you can lose your whole world with anger. You know, you can have an anger problem and lose your job and lose your family and go to prison. I mean, for the whole rest of your life. You know, and so it's not just substances that destroy us. And so, but I kind of lost my train of thought there with that side note there. Somebody help me where I was going real quick.
Helping somebody with their anger problem.
Before I said that.
I don't know, but Elsie just texted me. She's not feeling well and she had to leave, and she wanted me to tell everybody that she loved them.
Okay, we love you too, Elsie.
You were talking about co-occurring.
Okay, thank you. So it's just, I don't know, I guess maybe I wasn't supposed to share it. I guess, I don't know. But it's
it'll come back up later and we'll let you.
Yeah, okay. You know, just don't, you know, if you don't share your recovery, it dies. That's what I was saying. That's where I was. If you don't,
I told you.
Thank you. if we hide our recovery, then you have people constantly offering you stuff. Okay. And sometimes we don't want to tell our family and our friends that we're in recovery, but the truth is, if we will go ahead and do that, and that's not anything to be ashamed of, that's something to be proud of. That's not a weak thing. That makes you a badass. Okay. It's and there's that cussing that Lisa was talking about there.
Did you cuss there? I missed it.
Yeah, badass. I said badass there. Say it 3 times, badass. So, so sorry, Linda. Love you, Linda. Linda gets on me when I cuss, so because I love her. But if we make a practice of making people supports in our life, then that does a lot of things for us. But number one, they're not offering us a beer. They're not offering a temptation. You know, and they're not trying to do that to us. But we make people supports in our life, and that helps us in insurmountable ways. Okay, but the first thing it does is it eliminates if these people are healthy for us in our life anyway. I mean, if you have somebody in your life, if you have a friend that knows you're in recovery, and you tell them you're in recovery, and they're supposed to be a support for you, and they're still offering you alcohol, and alcohol is your drug of choice, or it's whatever it's not, they're not a good healthy friend for you. But that you should know. But we need to make a practice of making people supports in our life and not hiding our recovery. And because that's, you know, that kind of builds a safety net that they're not going to be offering us things, you know, because the truth is, you know, I've heard about dealers, believe it or not. Now you may call me crazy, but I've heard about dealers that people went in and told their dealer, I don't want to do this anymore. I want recovery, and they wouldn't sell to them. Now that's not everybody, okay? Now that's not everybody, but I've heard about it, you know. And since I cussed right there, I think I should explain something real quick. The thing that Lisa was bringing up, and it was all true, is that there was a time in my life whenever I decided that I had a list of things that I wanted to work on. And at the time, I didn't realize it. God helped me see it. You know how God helps you see those things that you hide from yourself? And I wanted to work on all these things that made me look good to other people. And a lot of that was the church people. You know, it made me look good to them because I wanted to be accepted, you know, because I don't fit in real well, you know, and I come from a rough place, a hard place. And so it's not real easy for me to fit in. And I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to fit in. And so I wanted to work on, you know, churchy stuff. I wanted to work on my mouth so I wouldn't offend people and I'd be more accepted, you know. And I wanted to work on those things, you know. And so, you know, God had his list, and I had mine. And God didn't care nothing about my list, you know. And so I got real frustrated because I wasn't getting a lot of traction on my list. And because God kept leading me to work on something else, and I wanted to work on my list, you know, because I wanted to look good. See, we want to look good on the outside, and God doesn't really care how we look. He wants us to be good. See, we want to look good. He wants us to be good. And one day in one of my little fits, I guess you could say, I'm like, well, why won't you help me with this cussing? You know, I just can't get this under control. You know, I just want to quit doing this. You know, and isn't it funny how when you really try to quit doing something, it seems like you do more of it, and you slip up at the worst time. and so I wasn't looking good, make me look bad, right? And so God kind of laid on my heart that, you know, well, you want to look good and you want to work on your mouth, and I want to work on the malice in your heart. That's what I want to work on. You know, and I finally realized that I wasn't going to get nowhere on my list if he wasn't in on it. And so I threw my list away and I got on his list. And that's worked out a lot better, you know. And so, you know, I would encourage you to dare to work on the list that he has for you, you know, and because that'll change your life. You know, your list, my list, it's not, it wasn't worth, my list wasn't worth, I'm not talking about your list, talking about my list. My list wasn't worth nothing really. It was just, it was all about appearances. And God loves us and he wants us to be good and he wants to bless us and he wants our life to be fruitful and he wants it to be good and he wants us to be happy and he wants us to have peace. And he's not so caught up in the whole appearance thing like we are sometimes, or like I was. So, but you know, I love my wife and she can mess with me and throw me under the bus anytime she wants to. So anyway, that's what I got. So thank you.
It's really
Thank you,
good
Zach.
stuff. That made me think about, at some point in life, I figured out that actually part of it came from the peer training. They have an exercise and you can tell what somebody needs quickly. I'm a fixer. So if you come to me and say, hey, I got a problem, I'll start rattling off an answer for your problem. But the fact is I probably don't understand what you're telling me, what your problem is. And the way that I would handle it is something different than you want to do. You mentioned earlier, you know, you thought somebody should want to be doing something, and or maybe it was Lisa said the guy didn't want his house, he wanted a job first. You know, we look at people and we think, okay, I know what you need, and at that point, you're not listening anymore. You're just popping out and we think everybody should have, a house, and 2 cars and 3.5 kids, and they should all be just like me. And that's what we expect for everybody. And you definitely got to get out of yourself to be able to listen to somebody else. And then you did that. The other thing I was going to comment on you did there at the last is, I don't even know what's best for me. So if I make my own list and get out of God's plan, it's not going to work out well for me. But that's what we tend to do is we think, okay, I'm going to head this direction. It'll make God happy because it's a good thing. Well, maybe it's not what God wanted for you in the first place. And got to stop and actually listen to him, not just think you're listening to him. And he'll make the hard job seem easier than the easy job that we want to take on. And that's kind of like, I kind of got the impression that was the working on cussing should be easier than really digging deep into something else. And so we like to do the easy stuff first to work into it. And
Yeah.
we don't want to get down in the ditch and hunker down. Anybody else got any comments on the step?
I was just going to say something real quick. Believe it or not, I've had to practice some stuff that people probably wouldn't believe. There was 2 years at SNL that I had 3 T-shirts made, and I wore it every Saturday. There were 3 different colors, and I wore them. And it was early on when I was going to SNL, but I wanted to help everybody. I just wanted to help everybody. I thought everybody could be fixed, and that if they were coming down for recovery, they should all get sober, and God should just fix everything, and that we're just all going to work out. And I know that may sound ridiculous, and it sounds ridiculous to me now, but that's what I wanted. And I didn't think that I could do it, okay, but it didn't stop me from wearing myself out trying. And so I had these T-shirts made, and they said that, and it said on the back, it said, "I'm not the Savior," and on the front it said, "Jesus is." And people, I don't even know if people knew what it was, but I wore them, and people would ask me what it meant, and I had to tell them, and that was me practicing, that it wasn't that I couldn't fix everybody, and not everybody was going to get fixed. And I wore those shirts for 2 years. I wore them every week for 2 years. And we had to practice these things, and listening and helping people with where they want to go. And sometimes, we have an idea of where we think they should go, like what you're talking about, like what Lisa was talking about. But that may not be where they want to go or where God even wants them to go, and so, but yeah, I think a lot of us are fixers, and I was working on my fixer. So,
Paul, I thought you were talking about being a fixer and then our lists versus God's list. And, I myself, I think we all at some point in time struggled with being fixers. That's that codependent part of us in there. And so I realized one day that my lists and my solutions got me to a recovery meeting. And so I should probably think about listening a little bit more and let them find some solutions for themselves, because not all of my solutions worked out real well. So
yeah, that's my line. It's what did that do for you? It got us here to the meeting, trying to do your own thing. Is there anything else before we move on to Doug time? Doug, take charge.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Zach. John, do you have anything to say? You haven't said anything.
No, not really. Just good meeting. Everything's going good.
All right. And Kate, you're next. You got any comments, Kate? We're interested in your input.
No, I don't have any comments.
All right. Well, okay. Well, thanks for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And thank you too, Paul, for your input. And the topic for tonight is about listening. That Lisa selected it for out of step 12, and that it's listen first is the exact topic. And I gave the title for tonight's program, the superpower of listening. It's so important. And the story that she talked about and that we talked about earlier together was the first thing was that we needed to listen to God. And Lisa has hit that a lot here tonight. And Zach has hit that quite a bit. If you were listening to what he was saying, you heard him talking about, I needed to listen to what I needed to do instead of making my mind up and doing what I decided I wanted to do or needed to do or what I think is best. And so for us, all of us, and all of you out there, if I may be so bold, is that we really need to listen. We really need to listen. And it's hard for us to listen. And Paul made some really good comments earlier about sometimes what we're listening to is God's voice, but it sounds a lot like our voice, which is true. And sometimes we twist that voice up to line up with our thinking instead of what he's saying, because sometimes he says things to us, like Zach was talking about, that is not exactly the way that I think it should be, because I want to, I think what God tells me should line up with my thoughts. And don't think that's strange. Even Job in the Old Testament did the exact very same thing, and he was asking. I think asking questions good, but he wasn't listening to what God wanted to tell him. And so we need to listen. And so the most valuable point here of our lesson tonight, I think, is exactly what Philip did in the beginning. He was in the right place because he listened to get there. And then God told him to listen to the traveler that was going by. Just listen. Listening is a superpower. Out of what was discussed, I made another note. And it really goes into what some of the things I want to share tonight is that this communication tool of listening, that we are actually communicating when we're listening, or when we're not listening, we're communicating. Shall I say that again? Listening is a tool, and that we're actually communicating something when we're not saying anything, when we're supposed to be listening, or when we're not listening. We are sending communication. What does the professional say? That between 90 and 95% of all communication is nonverbal. That means it's not what we're saying. And we think what we say is so important, and here we are saying it. But how I present myself, what I'm doing, is a nonverbal communication. Okay, you guys on the Zoom meeting here, what you do, how you look, it sends a message. Even though you're not talking, it still sends a message. Some information, I'm gonna just go through my information. I'm not trying to get on anybody. I'm just trying to give information. I'm not here to try to change anybody. I just want to help, and hopefully this information will be helpful, can create some new thoughts. Signs of active listening. This is what I got pulled up, and I printed it out. The first sign is a sign of active listening is smiling. if you smile, or if you don't smile, okay? And that sends a message. Thank you, Zach. That sends a message. Whether you're listening, whether you're not listening, whether you're engaged, a small smile can show a lot that you're listening, that you're engaged, and that you're paying attention. See, because you're paying attention to someone by listening is really giving them a gift. Does that make sense? And that this gift of your attention is a powerful tool, as I've already talked about earlier. So if we smile and if we combine it with a nod, the paperwork says combine it with a nod, nod of the head, a smile. They're a powerful affirmation, a message that's sent to the speaker that you're listening, that you're engaged, okay, that you're with them, you find it interesting, you like it, or whatever. If we look at the opposite of that, if you're ignoring them, if you're not looking, actually later on it talks about distractions, that if you're a distraction, if you're doing something to distract, or that you're, playing with your hair or flicking your fingers or whatever, that sends a message that you're possibly disinterested. You may be interested, but the message you're sending says you're not. Does that make sense? The second one is eye contact. Eye contact is encourages people, because when you look with your eyes, people figure, they think, they believe that you are focused on what they're doing. And generally when somebody's talking to you, you focus. But if you look over their shoulder or away, the other day I had a gentleman in my office, and I have a thermometer on the wall that's with the clock, and I'd been running the heater in my office. My toes were cold, and I was afraid that it was getting too warm, so I looked over at the thermometer just to make sure, because I didn't want to get too warm. And he thought I was looking at the clock and that I was maybe wanting to get rid of him. Who knows what he was thinking? But I said, I'm not looking at the clock. Actually, I did not look at the clock, even though the clock was right there. I didn't see what the time was. I try not to look at the clock when people are in my office. The clock on my wall, unless I want to run them off. And Zach was looking at me with his one good eye. So there you go. I see you. I see you. Hey, do that again, Zach. I put you on the box there.
That's my good eye.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. And so in active listening, first one is smile. The second one is eye contact, and combining that with nonverbal cues like smiling. That encourages the speaker, that engages the speaker. And on Zoom, that tells information because they're watching you, even though you're in a little box, they're watching you and seeing how you're responding to it. Because when we're in the meeting down here in Saturday Night Live, and that's where I'm at, I'm in the meeting room at church. People watch people to see how they're responding and how they're if they're agreeing with it or if they're disagreeing with it. And people they send out those signals, sometimes unconsciously, but a lot of times it's on purpose. Yes. Yes. And so what we have, we've got two signs that we do: the smiling and eye contact. Number 3 is posture, how we position our body. Now, you notice when Zach leaned up there with that eye and was looking at me in that look that maybe he was playing, maybe he was hard, maybe he was mad at me. We have to decide what it is. I think he was just playing, and he was. I choose to believe that. And he's nodding his head. And see, he's participating with what I'm saying here. And so, but our posture communicates to everyone that sees you. It's a visual thing, and if you believe in energetic effects, your posture sends out energy also, and whether it's a positive or a negative. Just so we're important. A listener is as important to the conversation as the one that's speaking. Okay. Number 4 is mirroring. Mirroring, if you listen to NLP information and other selling information, they talk about mirroring and how to make a connection with somebody is that you mirror them. In other words, if they're set in a particular way, you basically model their position, their body language. Okay, and doing that, and what you're trying to do is build rapport. Now, if you're mimicking them, or if you overdo that, if you're more focused on your shifting your posture to align with their posture, then they can pick up that actually you're not listening. You're trying to, shall we say, manipulate them with mirroring. And so there's a balance to everything. Okay, what I'm trying to say here. And so if we use facial features and that type of thing, it has an effect on the speaker and those around you. You're modeling. Just something to think about. And you can communicate sympathy and empathy and positive or sympathetic emotional feelings by how you model or move or position your body, which is very similar to the posturing that we talked about. The last one, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one is distraction or distractions. And that an active listener will not be a distraction. Okay, I'm reading that right off the paper. An active listener will not be a distraction. In other words, you won't. If you're a distraction, that means you shift the attention from the speaker. How many times have we seen some of that at Saturday night or in church? Somebody will be a distraction. Now, it's not exactly what is done, it's how you do it that will be a distraction, right? Okay. And so if you're fidgeting around, if you're making a lot of jerky movements, okay, you're a distraction. All right. And if you're doing that and somebody's speaking to you, that distracts the speaker from speaking, and it distracts anybody else that may be in an audience, even if it's not just one-on-one. If it's an audience still, these distractions are so devastating sometimes, because then you lose your train of thought, and besides that, the person speaking figures, well, they're not interested, and so it just negatively affects it. And everybody knows what I'm saying, I'm assuming. And so distractions, some other distractions, they said, looking at the clock, we've already discussed that a little bit, or your watch, seeing where we're at, and even though it may be even right, you need to be careful that doing that sends out a distraction. I know I have folks that come to my office that I'm talking with. I have my phone sitting off to my side on a charger, and if for some reason it makes a noise and I look at it, it negatively affects, not everybody, but oftentimes it negatively affects the person that's in my office. Why? Because they say you've lost, I have lost your attention. And that says to them, whatever that is more important than me. Oh, sounds kind of hard, right? But isn't that the truth? So doodling. Now, some people just they say that they can hear. Some people can do multiple things, but and that may be the case. But sometimes, according to the paperwork here, I'll blame it on that. Okay, according to the paperwork, doodling can be a distraction. Playing with your hair can be a distraction. Picking your fingernails, or how about your nose, can be a distraction. You know, things that can be. So we need to be aware. We need to be conscious of the messages that we're sending, because even though you're not talking, you're still communicating. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. And if you're actively listening, I'm going to turn this just a bit. I'm leaving the paperwork. If we're actively listening, then and we are engaged, we're visually, emotionally, our posture, we're leaning forward, we're trying to hear what's going on and receive it. You know, I listened to some information a long time ago. They talked about when you're driving in fog, oftentimes most of us lean into the steering wheel so that we can see. And the question is, does 4 or 5 or 6 inches help you see any better in fog that's outside your windshield? Well, the truth is probably not, but the leaning in and the focused concentration and narrowing down maybe the distractions by 4 or 5 inches doesn't really increase what you see out there, but it helps you to be more focused and it eliminates some of the distractions. Does that make any type of sense? Hopefully it does, because I think we all do that, right? And it's a focusing technique, oftentimes unconsciously, and it works. So when we are focused, we actually hear better. And I was listening to a podcast here recently, and they were talking about, you know, they were watching a movie with their wife, and the wife says, now watch this, and they said, I am watching this. How can I watch it any better? But what she was saying was, you know, you need. I think you'll like this if you'll pay closer attention. And maybe they were watching it, because oftentimes we can watch things, you know. Well, let's use this illustration. Oftentimes I can read things and read it even out loud, but not even know what it is that I read, because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. And I'm sure nobody else has that problem, but I have to get in a particular mindset and be focused on what I'm doing so that I can get be engaged and get the information out of it. I'm not that good a reader anyway, so I have to eliminate my distractions. Okay, and early in the mornings is my best mental time where I can engage. There's other times I'm able to do it if I'm able to be focused and able to eliminate the distractions and engage that. Now I know I've deviated from what we're talking about here, but it's about focus there. So anyway, those are some things that can help you in focusing. I have, and one of the things that Zach was talking about earlier, and this is some other information that I got that I think is really important, and talking about helping people. And this statement, I have not really heard too many people say it along this line, but it's actually a principle that I practice, and that is the person with the problem actually has the solution. And if we can help them go down through the go down through the layers, like the question that I talked about last week, if you were willing to see what you see and know what you know, and you go down through those layers, just get off the surface and get down into your deeper thinking, you start to hear things come out of your mouth that you didn't realize was in there. And you do that by probing or someone asking the question and giving you space and holding space so that you have time to process that. And that's part of this superpower of listening. Yes, asking questions and then shutting up. And that's what Philip was doing there. He asked a question and he shut up. And man, when you hold space with someone, it gives them an opportunity to really go deeper into what's going on. Because how many times, guys, have we talked with people? And I have done it here at Saturday night from the podium. People would ask me a question, and I'd ask them to restate that question. And then I'd ask them what they really mean by that question. And each time I ask them about what it is that they're talking about, it shifts. It gets a little more clear. We get down to the core stuff so that we can really help them with the thing that they really wanted to know, but they didn't even know they really wanted to know that, because they had to climb through all their stuff that's been pushing them around. And I know that's a little bit off topic, but it's still, I think it ties in with everything that everybody has said. So any comments from anyone? Comments on what I have said? Anybody? Or what's been said tonight? John, anything?
Nope, good stuff. I have a question though. Are we going to be doing the second? Just not doing the 26th?
Right now we're planning on doing the second,
Okay, I just checking.
but we're not going to be having a live meeting on the 26th.
Okay,
Yeah, 26th.
that's all.
All right. Glad you're here, John. Paul, any comments?
No, I think we've done a good job of covering the subject tonight, though. Lots of good input from everybody.
All right. Who wants to go next, Lisa or Zach or Kate? I'll throw it over to Zach.
I think it's good. I liked your stuff. I thought it was really good. And yep, I've enjoyed it tonight. It's been good.
Thanks. Going your way, Lisa. Kate, you're next.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really good. I liked a lot of the things that you were saying about the different listening skills and talking about, lowering the distractions. I liked a lot of that. So I appreciate it. It was a good meeting.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Now we saved the best to last, I guess. This is Kate.
Am I the best?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awfully sweet. I thought it was really good. I always enjoy it. So, but I'm glad that you think that I'm the best for last. I mean, I think that everybody's the best. I don't know, but yeah, I thought it was good.
Is that the official listening position, Kate?
It is. Yeah. This is how it goes. It was a long day, so.
Just being ornery.
Of course.
Everybody loves Kate, don't we?
Yep.
I love you guys too.
Well, I in my process of studying, I came across some other information that was really good about actually a fellow that wrote a book. The book was The Coaching Habit, which he was the top coach. Since he's not in the United States, I have to be the world, I guess, in 2019, which I never heard of him. Are you interested in the name? It's kind of a challenging name. Are you interested in the name? It's Michael Bungay Stanner. Stanner, yeah, Stanier. And he very interesting. He maybe one of the reasons why I like him is because he basically hit a lot of things the way that I do it. So how could I not like him? You know, so anyway, but we're not going to talk about him tonight. It's good. If we ever get back to leadership meetings, I'll probably definitely hit some of that. So, but anyway, for tonight, thank you, team. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate it. The meeting would not be this meeting without you guys. You bring so much to it, and I appreciate it so much. And I just want to say to the listeners out there, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace. And I'm going to send you back over to our MC to wrap us up.
Well, I hope y'all got something out of tonight. Need to learn how to listen. And you also need to find somebody that you can talk to that will listen to you. And those are two important things to have in life as you go on. Anyway, glad you were here. Hope that we could help. And if you need further help, figure out how to get hold of one of us, and we'll see what we can do. Anyway, love you.